Hey YouTube, welcome to Sunkerns Lab. Today I have an OG battle on Pokemon Showdown, but before I get into the battle, I have a pretty important topic to touch on before we move on here. I've been thinking of starting up 2 new series, and both of them I'm not really... The thing about it is, they've been done before in different ways, and I don't know if anybody would ever want to see them again. I mean, it's not like I would just be copying off of another exact, I wouldn't just be replicating something and tossing it onto my own channel or something, but, the same idea of certain stuff has been done, so, anyway, gonna get into more specifics here. The first series idea that I had was to make a series about, basically taking top 5 Pokemon of any different category. So for example, maybe I could have something like top 5 defensive walls, or top 5 special attackers, top 5 tanks, etc. Basically anything really. I'm sure you could think of 100 right now different categories that we could have a top 5 for, but basically I was thinking of having my own top 5 for different things like that. Like, for example, I could have top 5 physical walls, give my personal opinion on the top 5 physical walls that I think are the top 5, and give reasons why, give a little bit of information on them and whatnot. It might help people out in building teams and stuff like that, but it also might just be entertaining as well. So basically, if you think that would be somewhat interesting, then feel free to say so in the comments, and also feel free to give any type of suggestion about it as well. If you have an idea as to how you think I could do it and make it better, than make it more original, make it more interesting, then feel free to leave that in the comments as well. Now, the second series that I was thinking of starting was basically a series where I take one individual Pokemon and then basically analyze it competitively. So for example, you can see the team preview right now. Let's say if I took Rotom Wash and just gave it a competitive analysis, let you know my thoughts on it, and then also just kind of lay down the facts on it. Give it sort of a, basically analyze it. Not in the sense that Smogon does, but in a different sense of basically how good is this Pokemon, where does it fit into a team, and instead of doing it in a text format, doing it in a video format. So maybe that would be interesting, maybe that would be interesting. Whoa, I think I just repeated myself there. Maybe that would be entertaining, but more importantly, hopefully it would be helpful or educational to some people who maybe want to learn how to use a certain Pokemon and just don't really necessarily know how, or know where, like what type of team they would want to use on, and so on and so forth. So those are the 2 different series I was thinking of. So if you think that either of those are at all interesting, feel free to let me know in the comment section, because everything that I do, I try not to do too much without feedback nowadays, because like things with Fire at Omega went nowhere because nobody really watches it, because I didn't ask for feedback. Nobody wanted to see it. So leave some feedback if you're interested in those things. I'm gonna post one of each of those series at some point anyway, but I would like to at least have some feedback before I get going. So, like I said, I would really appreciate some feedback on that. If you decide not to really care, that's fine as well, but if you think that you have an opinion, then feel free to leave it in the comments. So anyway, moving on from that stuff, let's get into this battle. Before I actually get started, obviously you can tell that my team's on the other side. I am Sunkerns Lab, as always, and this is a team that I've shown on this channel 2 or 3 times. It's not a very good team, but it's a fun team to use. It's basically just a Volt Turn team. Everything on the team has Volt Turn except for Wobbuffet and Cloyster. Cloyster being obviously the Shell Smash variant, and Wobbuffet being a trapper for certain things, and also helps Cloyster set up. So, that's the team. I've showed it more than once already, so it doesn't really need much explaining. But looking at my opponent's team, he has a Bronzong, he has a Dragonite, he has a Mew and a Swampert, and those are the big threats on his team. Everything else I can deal with. I don't really have any problems with Tentacruel or Blissey. with this team. Neither of them really pose any threat. But I don't have a fire type move for the Bronzong, and obviously Dragonite's always a threat, so you always have to keep that in mind. So I'm going to lead straight off with my Gliscor, just because I want to get my rocks up first turn to break that Dragonite's multi-scale, seeing that he does not have a spinner. So that's what I do. I lead with my Gliscor, he leads with his Mew. I was predicting him to go for the rocks, so I went straight for my rocks, and he actually goes for the Will-O-Wisp, which is kind of annoying because obviously now I no longer have the advantage of having Poison Heal. But I'm just going to U-turn out on the next turn because I don't want to stay on this Mew and just die. So I U-turn out into my Swampert, get a little bit of damage off. Not much though, seeing as I'm burned. And U-turn out with my Staraptor, seeing how much damage that did. I know for a fact that this Mew is physically defensive, but I'm just going to U-turn out into my Gliscor, predicting the Will-O-Wisp again. And then once again, I'm just going to go for a U-turn. And the advantage of me going for a U-turn, it actually allows me to excuse me, allows me to keep my Gliscor alive for Death Fodder, which obviously Death Fodder is always useful, and I can U-turn out right into my Jolteon, and with my Jolteon I can go straight for the Volt Switch because I don't think he's going to want to go into a Swampert just this early in the game, just in case I do have Hidden Power Grass. So I'm going to go for the Volt Switch out into my Staraptor, and now Staraptor's in, I can go for a Brave Bird or a Double Edge, but I decided just to go for the Close Combat, which would easily take out the Blissey, but it also isn't going to get too much recoil damage on me either, which is nice because I don't really want to be taking huge amounts of recoil if he did end up staying with Blissey. So anyway, I go for the Close Combat. I can't stay in the Swampert because I don't want to take a possible Ice Beam, so I just go switch straight out to my Rotom Watch, which completely walls every form of Swampert as long as I don't have Toxic. So he ends up setting up Stealth Rocks. I burn him and he switches out. He doesn't want to stay in, obviously, so I'm going to go for the Volt Switch, predicting him to switch. He does switch into his Blissey, so that works out great for me. And then I'm able to just switch right out to my Staraptor from the Volt Switch, which forces him out once again. This time he decides to go into his Mew, however, and because I know for a fact that he's not gonna want to stay in with his Blissey as he showed earlier, I'm just going to go straight for the Double Edge and hopefully take something out. And obviously he's not going to stay in with his Mew after nearly dying because that thing still has a Will-O-Wisp, but it can be a real pain in the butt for the rest of my team. So I'm actually going to pull a double switch, go into my Gliscor, and he actually switches out as well into his Bronzong. And because I know he's in with his Bronzong, I can go into my Wobbuffet, set up a Safeguard, and actually my intention was to Encore him into Toxic. But I actually end up Encoring him into Earthquake, which works out okay for me as well, because now what I can do is I can switch out into Cloyster, which has really good physical defense, and set up a Shell Smash. And this early in the game, I really didn't expect to sweep him, but you know, we'll see how that works out. So I go for the Shell Smash after he's still Encored into Earthquake, so he doesn't really have any options here. He has to go for Earthquake as I set up in his face, or he could switch out, but I don't think that would really benefit him either. So I go for the Razor Shell. I do get the defense drop, which is really great, but he gets a crit in return, so kind of evens out the hacks there. And obviously I'm just going to go for a Razor Shell in the next turn to take out his Bronzong. Now, he's going to switch into a Swampert, and at this point I know I can kill the Swampert with an Icicle Spear, but I didn't really quite understand why he didn't switch into his Dragonite, because almost every Dragonite carries Extreme Speed. But on the next turn, he's also not going to switch into his Dragonite. Now, I know I can't take out this Tentacruel with a Rock Blast, but luckily for me, I'm actually going to get one crit, and I know it sucks for him, but the reality of the situation is I basically hit 10 times in the last 2 turns, and that's basically one crit out of 10 times is pretty much what you should expect. But anyway, I take out his Mew, he brings in his Dragonite, and he apparently does not have Extreme Speed because I'm able to just take him out with an Icicle Spear. And then he's just going to bring in his Blissey, and I'm going to take out the Blissey with an Icicle Spear as well. So that's going to be the game. This guy did not have Extreme Speed on his Dragonite, I'm guessing. Either that or he did not know how to use it. And it's possible he didn't know what he was doing at all, but I kind of figured that wasn't true because he did have quite a high ranking. Not too much lower than my own at that, so you know, he obviously knew somewhat what he was doing, so I don't think that he was clueless. I think he just didn't carry Extreme Speed on his Dragonite, which is fine because some Dragonites just simply don't run it, which is, you know, that's their prerogative. I wouldn't do it, but you know, that's my opinion. So anyway, before I end this video off, I do want to say, please think, just run through your mind real quick the two video ideas that I put forth at the beginning of the video, because I really would appreciate feedback. And basically, I'll just refresh it real quick. The two ideas are, one idea is basically a competitive analysis of each Pokemon, each competitively viable Pokemon, I should say. Tier is not going to be relevant, but anything that can be used in any tier at any point. Obviously, I'm not going to do things like Pidgey, because Pidgey is not viable, not even in Little Cup. So, not every single Pokemon, but every Pokemon that has competitive value, and analyzing it and giving suggestions and my opinion and many other things along with that. And then the other video idea is having a top 5 list of different types of categories of Pokemon, and the examples that I would use would be something like top 5 physical walls, or top 5 special attackers, top 5 revenge killers, something along those lines. So, all those things could be very entertaining, and they also could be, more importantly, they could be helpful to some people who might have questions about how to use certain Pokemon, or whether or not they could have something better than that Pokemon on their team. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And I would really appreciate it even more if you could leave some feedback on those two ideas. So thank you for watching once again. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.